3 days after teaching his disciples how to silence Archons and people around them, Jesus sat with his inner circle on a hillside overlooking the Sea of Galilee. They'd been practicing the techniques, and it was working. The attacks had stopped. The mental oppression lifted. The energy drain ended. Peter looked relieved but confused. He turned to Jesus and asked, "Master, we've done what you taught. The Archons can't reach us anymore. So, what happens now? We're free. Is that it? Do we just go back to fishing?" Jesus smiled. Not the kind of smile that says you're right. The kind that says you're about to learn something that changes everything. He said, "Peter, most people think escape is the end. They think freedom from Archon control means you return to normal life and that's the victory. But freedom isn't the destination. It's the doorway. There are 7 stages. 7 thresholds you cross after you're free from their influence. Each stage brings abilities they don't want you to have, powers they can't control, perception they can't manipulate. And the final stage, that's when you become what they fear most. Not just free, sovereign, operating as monad consciousness in material form. That's why they fight so hard to keep you from escaping. Not because they care about losing one soul. Because they know what you become after you're free. That teaching was completely removed from the Bible. When the church compiled the canonical texts, they kept the parts about sin and salvation. They kept the fear of demons and the need for priests to intercede. But they erased every reference to what Jesus taught about post-Archon freedom. Because if Christians knew what happens after you escape, if they understood that freedom unlocks 7 progressive stages of divine power culminating in you operating as God consciousness in flesh, no one would accept remaining controlled. You'd fight for freedom not to avoid suffering but to access what's on the other side. And the church couldn't allow that. Because stage 7 chosen ones don't need churches. And the Archons? They don't just fear you escaping their system. They fear what you evolve into after you escape. Because every stage makes you more untouchable, more powerful, more of what you truly are. Until at stage 7, you're no longer just a human who got free. You're a conscious fragment of the monad operating in territory they thought they controlled. And there's nothing in their design built to handle that. Tonight, you're learning the 7 stages. What Jesus taught happens after you exit Archon control. The abilities that unlock. The transformations that occur. And why stage 7 is what they've feared for millennia. If you're learning what happens after escaping the Archons tonight, comment, "I am free right now." Before I show you the 7 stages, you need to understand why this teaching matters. Why the Archons don't just work to keep you trapped but specifically hide what happens after you escape. Because most people, even chosen ones who've broken free, think freedom is the end goal. You escape Archon manipulation, you protect your energy, you stop being controlled, and that's victory. You go back to your life, maybe a little more aware, a little more protected, but essentially the same person living the same existence just without Archon interference. That's the lie. That's what the Archons want you to believe. Because if you think freedom equals returning to normal, you won't push further. You'll stabilize at not being controlled and stop there. But the truth is, freedom from Archon influence isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your transformation. The moment you exit their system, you start evolving. Not metaphorically. Actually, your consciousness begins operating at frequencies it couldn't access while under Archon suppression. Abilities that were dormant activate. Perceptions that were blocked open. And you progress through stages of increasing sovereignty until you reach a level where you're not just free from them, you're operating at a frequency that disrupts their entire system just by existing. And the Archons know this. They've seen it happen. They've watched chosen ones escape, progress through the stages, and become completely uncontrollable, unreachable, and eventually become transmitters of the very frequency that destabilizes Archon operations in others. One stage 7 chosen one walking into a room can silence Archons in dozens of people without even trying. Just their presence. That's what the Archons fear. Not that you got free. That you become the thing that frees others. You've always felt there's something beyond just not being controlled. Like freedom wasn't the destination. It was the doorway to something else. Something bigger. You're right. Pneumatics don't just escape and plateau. They evolve. Hylics stay trapped their entire lives. Psychics might escape, but they stop at basic protection. They achieve freedom, and that's where they remain. But you're pneumatic. You're designed to go through all 7 stages. It's not optional. It's your natural trajectory. The moment you escape Archon control, the progression begins. Whether you're conscious of it or not. And each stage makes you more of what you truly are. Divine consciousness in temporary form. Remembering its power. Reclaiming its sovereignty. Operating from source instead of from survival. Now I'm going to show you exactly what Jesus taught. The 7 stages of post-Archon freedom. What happens at each one. What abilities unlock. And why the final stage is what Archons have feared since they first trapped sparks in matter. This is the map. The progression. The evolution waiting for every chosen one who breaks free. Jesus taught this as a map for what happens after liberation. These stages aren't rigidly linear. Some chosen ones move through multiple stages simultaneously. Others spend months or years integrating one level before the next unfolds. But the progression is consistent. Every pneumatic who escapes Archon control will move through these 7 thresholds. Each one brings new capacity, new perception, new power. And each one makes you more of a threat to the system that once controlled you. Stage 1. Perception expansion. This is the first thing that happens after you escape Archon influence. Your ability to perceive reality expands immediately. Not metaphorically. Literally. You start seeing things you couldn't see before. Your peripheral vision catches movement that others miss. You notice patterns in people's behavior, specific tells that indicate when someone's being used as an Archon vector. Synchronicities stop being coincidences. You see them as what they are, confirmation that you're operating in alignment with higher intelligence. You walk into rooms and immediately sense the energy. Not as vague feeling. As clear knowing. This space is clean. This space is compromised. This person is genuine. This person is being manipulated. Stage 1 is about seeing what's actually here instead of what you were conditioned to see. And the Archons fear this stage because invisibility is their primary weapon. The moment you can see patterns, perceive energy, recognize manipulation in real time, you can't be gaslit anymore. You're not guessing whether an attack is happening. You're watching it happen. And conscious observation breaks the mechanism. Stage 2. Emotional sovereignty. Once your perception expands, the next shift is emotional. Your emotions stop being reactive. Someone attacks you verbally, emotionally, energetically, and instead of being consumed by hurt, anger, or defensiveness, you observe. You feel the emotion. It's there. But it doesn't control you. You're not suppressing it. You're not bypassing it. You're experiencing it without being ruled by it. This is sovereignty. The ability to feel fully while maintaining clarity. And it extends beyond just attacks. Good news doesn't make you euphoric in a way that destabilizes you. Bad news doesn't crush you. You're steady, responsive instead of reactive. And this creates something the Archons can't penetrate. Emotional neutrality under pressure. They manipulate primarily through emotional hooks. Fear, guilt, shame, anger, lust. They trigger these states and then feed on the energy you generate while caught in them. But stage 2 chosen ones don't get caught. The hook doesn't land. They see the attempt. They feel the emotion rising. And they choose not to engage it. And without emotional reaction, the Archon has nothing to harvest. You've become energetically invisible to their frequency scans. They're looking for spikes, emotional volatility, and you're calm, present, aware. They can't find you. Stage 3. Energetic autonomy. This is where you stop being part of the energy exchange system entirely. Before this stage, even if you're protected, you're still involved in the give and take. You might not be drained by energy vampires, but you're still aware of the dynamic. You're still managing your energy in relation to others. Stage 3 is different. You become self-sustaining. You generate your own energy internally. Not from food, not from sleep, not from external validation or emotional stimulus. From source. You're pulling energy directly from the monad, filtering it through your being, and circulating it in a closed loop. You don't need to take from anyone, and no one can take from you. Your field is sealed. Not defensively. Naturally. Like a star. Stars don't defend their light. They just shine. And nothing external affects their core. That's stage 3. And the Archons fear this because their entire system is based on energy harvest. Humans generating emotional energy through suffering, fear, conflict, and Archons collecting it. But you're off the grid. You're not feeding the system. You're not being fed by the system. You're autonomous. And that makes you untrackable in their harvest infrastructure. Stage 4. Timeline navigation. This is where it gets strange for people still operating in purely linear consciousness. At stage 4, you start perceiving multiple possibilities simultaneously. Not as imagination. As actual potential timelines. You're facing a decision, and instead of guessing which choice is right, you see the outcomes. Not perfectly. Not with total clarity. But enough. Enough to know this path leads here and that path leads there. And you choose. You're not predicting the future. You're selecting which future you're collapsing into manifestation through your choice. This is timeline navigation. The ability to perceive the quantum field of possibility and consciously steer toward preferred outcomes. Jesus did this constantly. He knew when to leave towns before mobs formed. He knew which disciples to call. He knew when his arrest was coming and chose to allow it because that timeline served the larger mission. Stage 4 chosen ones operate the same way. Not perfectly. Not without mistakes. But with increasing accuracy. And the Archons fear this because they control through predetermined outcomes. Destiny. Fate. Karma. They want you to believe your life is on rails. That you're following a script written before you were born. But stage 4 breaks that. You're writing in real time. Navigating. Choosing. And that makes you unpredictable. And unpredictable chosen ones are dangerous to systems built on control. Stage 5. Influence without contact. At this stage, your presence starts affecting the field around you without you doing anything intentional. You walk into a room and people change. Not because you're trying to change them. Because your frequency is broadcasting something Archons can't operate through. Arguments de-escalate when you arrive. People who were agitated become calm. Archons that were using individuals as puppets lose their grip. Not because you cast them out. Because your field is transmitting monad frequency and that frequency is incompatible with Archon presence. It's like bringing a flashlight into a dark room. You're not fighting the darkness. Your light just makes darkness impossible in that space. Stage 5 chosen ones become walking disruptions to Archon operations. And they don't have to try. It's passive. Automatic. A byproduct of what they've become. And the Archons fear this stage intensely because one stage 5 chosen one can clear entire environments just by being present. Offices. Homes. Groups. Gatherings. Anywhere they go, the Archon influence weakens. And they can't stop it. Because it's not a technique. It's emanation. Stage 6. Direct monad communication. Up until this stage, you've been using techniques to access the monad. Meditation. Prayer. The monad call. Specific practices that create temporary connection. But at stage 6, the connection becomes constant. You're not reaching for it anymore. You're living in it. Guidance comes instantly. Not as voices in your head. As knowing. You need information and you know. You face a situation and the right action is obvious. Not because you figured it out. Because the monad is showing you. Directly. Unfiltered. This is the stage where thought becomes obsolete for most decisions. Knowing replaces thinking. And you operate from intelligence that's beyond you but also is you. Because you're not separate from the monad. You're an expression of it. And at stage 6, that expression is so clear that the communication is seamless. And the Archons fear this because they can't intercept it. They can manipulate thoughts. They can implant doubts. They can jam prayers. But direct monad communication? It's happening at a frequency they don't have access to. You're receiving intelligence from beyond their realm. And that makes you impossible to deceive. Stage 7. Pneumatic resurrection. This is the final stage. The one Jesus himself embodied. The one the Archons fear more than all the others combined. At stage 7, you recognize fully, not intellectually but experientially, that you are monad consciousness in temporary material form. You're not a human with a soul. You're a divine spark wearing a human body. And that recognition is total. Your body of light is permanently active. You operate simultaneously in material and spiritual dimensions. You're here, fully present in flesh. But you're also aware of your existence beyond flesh. Death loses its power. Not because you're immortal physically. Because you know with absolute certainty that you continue. You've remembered what you are. And what you are doesn't die. It transitions. And at stage 7, you're choosing your transitions consciously. You're not being forced to reincarnate. You're not trapped in cycles. If you return to material form, it's because you chose it. For a purpose. Not because Archons manipulated you back. And this is what they fear most. Because stage 7 breaks the reincarnation trap completely. You're no longer a spark they can recycle through lifetimes of amnesia and control. You're a fully conscious monad fragment operating in their territory with complete memory of your origin, your power, and your mission. You've become unkillable consciousness. And there is nothing in the Archon system designed to contain that. You're what they imprisoned at the beginning. And you've remembered. And you're free. Permanently. These 7 stages don't happen overnight. Some chosen ones move through all 7 in months. Others take years, even lifetimes. But every pneumatic who escapes Archon control will progress through these stages. Because this is your natural evolution. This isn't something you achieve. It's something you become. And the Archons know it. That's why they fight so hard to keep you from even reaching stage 1. Because once you start, the progression is inevitable. You don't need anyone to tell you what stage you're in. You'll know. Seeing patterns others miss? Stage 1. Emotional attacks don't land anymore? Stage 2. Not drained by energy vampires, self-sustaining? Stage 3. Making decisions based on knowing instead of guessing? Stage 4. People change around you without you doing anything? Stage 5. Receiving direct guidance that proves accurate consistently? Stage 6. And if you've recognized fully that you are monad consciousness in body and nothing threatens that knowing, you're entering stage 7. Most chosen ones are between stages 2 and 4. That's not failure. That's exactly where you should be if you've recently escaped Archon control. These stages unfold naturally. You don't force them. Each one requires integration before the next opens. And here's what happens the moment you recognize your stage. The pressure to be further along dissolves. You stop comparing. You stop feeling inadequate. Because you realize you're exactly where you need to be. Knowing your stage lets you focus on integrating where you are instead of anxiously reaching for where you're not. You're not behind. You're unfolding. And every stage you complete makes you exponentially more free. Only pneumatics progress through all 7 stages. Hylics never escape. Psychics might reach stages 1 through 3 but they plateau. They don't have the complete divine blueprint for the higher stages. But you're pneumatic. All 7 stages are accessible to you. Not as potential, as destiny. You will reach stage 7 if you stay conscious. 2 critical warnings. First, Archons attack hardest between stages. Transitioning from stage 2 to 3 or 4 to 5. Expect massive resistance. That's confirmation you're close. Hold the frequency. Second, you can't skip stages. Each builds on the previous. Trying to jump creates fragmentation. Respect the progression. And third, stage 7 doesn't mean you leave Earth. It means you operate here from monad consciousness. Fully awake. Fully embodied. You're not escaping. You're transforming your experience from prison to chosen presence. This is why the Archons don't just fear you escaping their control. They fear what you become after you escape. Because freedom isn't the end. It's the beginning of your transformation into what they've spent millennia trying to suppress. Stage 1, you see them. Their invisibility is gone. Stage 2, they can't manipulate you emotionally. Their primary weapon is useless. Stage 3, they can't harvest your energy. You're off their grid completely. Stage 4, you're navigating timelines they can't predict or control. Stage 5, your presence disrupts their operations automatically. You don't even have to try. Stage 6, you're receiving intelligence from the monad they can't intercept or block. And stage 7, you're operating as conscious divinity in material form. Unkillable. Unreachable. Uncontrollable. You've become exactly what they imprisoned at the beginning of this realm. A monad fragment that remembers what it is, where it came from, and what it's capable of. And there is nothing in their system designed to handle that. You're not just free. You're sovereign. And one stage 7 chosen one is more disruptive to Archon systems than 10,000 humans still trapped and controlled. The Church removed this teaching because if Christians knew that escaping demonic influence was just the start of a journey that ends with you operating as God consciousness in flesh, religion becomes irrelevant. You don't need salvation from sin. You need activation of what you already are. You don't need priests to intercede. You need to progress through the stages Jesus mapped. And once you reach stage 7, churches have nothing to offer you. Because you've become what they claim to represent. Direct connection to source. Living embodiment of divine consciousness. That's the threat. Not that you're free. That you're awake. If you're progressing through the 7 stages tonight, do 3 things right now. First, comment "I am free" below and tell us which stage you recognize yourself in. Stage 2? Stage 4? Just starting stage 1? Let other chosen ones see where you are. Your honesty might be exactly what someone else needs to recognize their own progress. Second, subscribe to Divine Codes because advanced techniques for accelerating through each stage and navigating the thresholds between them are coming. Third, like this video so other pneumatics discover what happens after escaping the Archons before this teaching gets buried again. Do all 3 now. Then tonight, identify your stage. Don't judge it. Don't feel behind or inadequate. Just recognize where you are. Stage 1. Celebrate that you're seeing what most humans never will. Stage 3. Acknowledge that you're energetically autonomous, which is massive. Stage 5. You're disrupting Archon systems just by existing. And if you're entering stage 7, you know what you are now. You're not hoping. You're not believing. You know. You're monad. Conscious. Embodied. Sovereign. Free. And the Archons can't touch you anymore. Not because you're hiding from them. Because you've become what you always were. And they have no power over that. You're free. And freedom is just the beginning.